Okay, here we go. Loved Chevy drive around the SEC, presented by the great folks at Love Chevy. Ben Hoover and the gang got you covered. Home of the $1,000 low price guarantee. Your choice. Where do you guys want to start? Do you want to start college football, men's basketball, women's basketball, or baseball?
I don't care.
Yeah, let's just
basketball or baseball right now.
Okay. I'll take that over the I don't care response. We'll go with basketball.
I care deeply. They're just all delicious.
there we go. That's a much better response.
It's like, I don't care.
Morale up.
I don't care between the filet, the porterhouse, and the ribeye, and the shrimp. Just give me one,
You're excited about every dish that's about to be served, and I respect that. We'll start with women's basketball. Ladies first, okay? Women's Final Four odds. Women's Final Four odds, as you might expect. South Carolina is number one on the charts. They are minus 200. You want to go to Vegas and you want to pick some dogs? Iowa plus 300 with Caitlin Clark. UConn plus 700. NC State plus 1,400. If you want to go with a long shot, Gamecocks are an 11.5-point favorite against the Wolfpack in that matchup. Of course, on the men's side, you have Alabama. I mentioned yesterday they are the longest shot of them all to cut down the nets. And, of course, they've got the burden of taking on invincible UConn in the first part of the Final Four. SEC in the Final Four, they've now been added to the list. We went over this list, I believe, on Monday, where essentially over half the league, if you include Texas and Oklahoma, has been to a Final Four. But there hadn't been a lot of late. Bama joins for the first time, 2019 Auburn before that, 2017 South Carolina before that, and then it's just a rash of Kentucky. 4 of them for Cal, although Cal hasn't been to one since 2015. 2012 was the title team with Anthony Davis. Florida, of course, in 96, 97 under Billy, and Arkansas under Nolan in 94. And that's it. I mean, that's your entire list. So needless to say, Greg Sankey and the gang will be probably in Cleveland and in Phoenix to cheer on the Gamecocks and the Crimson Tide. I just want to throw this in baseball-wise. I know we don't have all the time in the world. By the way, what did Derek say? Favorite Eddie Murphy movie?
48 Hours. 48 Hours. He was in agreement. Yeah.
All right. Great minds think alike on that one. But on the baseball side, we've had Gamecocks have a midweek game tonight, as you know. Southern beat LSU on Monday night, 12-7. Central Arkansas, LSU, by the way, a top 10 team. Central Arkansas beat top 25 Mississippi State 7-6. Ole Miss lost a midweek game. What does it all mean? Nada. Don't get worked up about midweek losses. If you're playing like an in-state rival, you can get juiced up about it. But the very best teams in America lose midweek games in college baseball. Little NFL draft. Field Yates has his latest version out. Jalen Daniels, number 2 to Washington. Malik Neighbors, number 6 to the Giants. Dallas Turner. That seems to be like the most consensus pick out there, other than number 1. Dallas Turner, number 8 to the Falcons. Brock Bowers, number 10 to the Jets. And J.C. Latham, number 11 to the Chargers. Those are all SEC guys, of course. That would mean 5 out of the top 11 would hail from the Southeastern Conference. He has Xavier Legette, number 34 overall. That's just missing the cut in the first round to the New England Patriots, who could desperately use just about everything and a lot of it. I don't know if Legette wants to go to New England. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have a line. They don't have a running game. But he very well could, because he would be a heck of a pick at 34 if that happens to be the case. You guys have heard about this Eric Musselman story?
Oh.
Anybody?
Yeah,
Bueller?
I sure have. Do you think he'll wear a shirt out there or no?
This is interesting. And I'll tell you how it all could tie into Michie Johnson in a second. So for those that have not read the reports, Eric Musselman apparently is rubbing elbows with the brass at Southern Cal and possibly leaving Arkansas for the Southern Cal job. Now, why in the world would you do that? He's led Arkansas to 2 Elite Eights and a Sweet 16. He's beloved there. Had a down year this year. I've never seen him so, just down overall on his team. He's got strong ties to the left coast. He grew up in San Diego when his dad was coaching. Still a Padres fan. He loves California. I'm not sure if he and Mrs. Musselman are as infatuated with Fayetteville, perhaps, as they would be living the good life in SoCal. So this is a legit rumor. You've already got Bronny James in the portal because they're having a coaching change, and Bronny might go, and there's talk about he could go back to his home state and go to Ohio State, and he could possibly join Michie Johnson there as a Buckeye. Apparently, Ohio State, I'm going to morph one of JC's expressions. This is not caged animal syndrome hire. This is like a caged animal syndrome program that's just shelling out money in everything, left and right. Maybe the baseball team will start playing in a dome. Maybe they'll build the Buckeye Dome. They are printing money in Columbus right now. Did you guys talk much about Michie, by the way?
We haven't got to it.
My understanding,
the news just broke today. It was official.
Morning.
We knew he was probably going there.
Yeah. From what I understand from a pretty good source, this is nothing personal against South Carolina. He threw out a very high number. And again, Ohio State is printing numbers, and yes, printing money, and yes, his father is a coach there, and he hails from there. And quite honestly, I think Michie's a good kid. I have nothing negative to say about him. He's a big part of the reason why Carolina went on the run it did. I think he's a flawed player. I think they can actually upgrade in the portal, and it would not surprise me if they did. But sometimes it just changes scenery. So he goes back to Ohio State, and maybe teams up with Bronny James, and maybe he becomes a more consistent player, because that was the biggest knock on him. Just not consistent enough. Didn't have it every day. Hot off the presses, last thing here on the football front. This is from Athlon, and as opposed to just your typical poll and rankings, which we can all say we hate them, but we can't ignore them, right? This is not a poll or a ranking. This is a scale in the SEC on most returning starters and most production for 2024. So, for example, leading the SEC in returning starters overall, Kentucky and Georgia each have 15. That's number one. A 9-6 offense-defense split for each program. 15 leads the way. The fewest returning starters? How about Mississippi State? They returned 3. 3 returning starters.
Wow.
Tough job out there for Jeff Levy. So where is South Carolina? I know you're asking. I'm going to tell you. Tied for 8th with 11. Now, obviously, this number will fluctuate based on practice battles, 2 deep, spring practice, but they have South Carolina down for 4 on offense, 7 on defense. JC, does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, maybe a little high. Well, like Bam Martin Scott, is he technically a returning starter? Probably. It depends on the formation. Mm-hmm. But that sounds right. It's more on defense than offense for sure.
To put it in perspective, I don't know if this means everything. It's something we all look at when we're trying to evaluate who are the best teams in any given conference. Like Alabama, by the way, if you missed our Andy Staples interview yesterday, it's evergreen, so you can always listen to it. It's not dated. It was outstanding on JC and Morgan, but we talked about Alabama. He just interviewed Kalen DeBoer. They're 8th in returning starters with 11. Does anybody think Alabama's going to struggle this year? Probably not.
It's going to be terrible.
They're going to be awful.
Fall off the face of the earth. Yeah.
They'll be lucky if they can hike the football. How about returning production? Again, raw numbers here. Returning offensive production, South Carolina is 12th with 52% of the yardage coming back. Defensively, they're second. 74% of the starts from a year ago are back on the defensive side. The only team that has more on the defensive side is Oklahoma. Oklahoma is number 1 in returning production. So some takeaways: Georgia and Kentucky are tied for first in the SEC with most returning starters. Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State got a lot of work to do. 10 out of the 16 SEC teams plan to bring in at least 10 transfers for 24. South Carolina, by the way, is number 2 on that list. A&M's number 1 with 23 transfers out of the portal. Gamecocks are second with 20. The Razorbacks rank near the bottom of the SEC in returning starters and returning production. Yeah, the countdown is on for Sam Pittman. Texas A&M landed one of the biggest transfer classes in college football history with 23 players. And rebuilding Alabama's standout defense, arguably the biggest concern for new coach Kalen DeBoer. As I mentioned, the Crimson Tide ranked 15th in the SEC in returning production on that side of the football. And that does it for the Love Chevy Drive around the SEC. Maestro, take it away.
To you by Love Chevy, where the inventory is overflowing and the deals are in full bloom. I-26 at Harbison and at lovechevy.com. Together, let's drive.